and welcome back to the Book and Life podcast. Today we're going to have a brand new book guest on. Whether they're an author, an editor, a producer, you'll never quite know, so you're in for one hell of a ride. But today I just have to do the adverts and then I'll get us straight into that most important conversation. And as we do every week, I'm going to read The Shadow, which is part of the Time Guardian series, and this is book 4 from Marianne Curley. The battle is over, the war is won. The prophecy complete, but life can't just pick up where it left off for Ethan, struggling to cope with tragic loss. At odds with friends in the guard, he finds himself adrift, jumping in shadows and sensing someone who can't possibly be there. Blaming herself for the goddess Athena's death, Giselle swears revenge, to vilify the Immortals' plan for world domination. But Giselle hadn't planned on love, and that leaves her with an unbearable choice. Should she follow her heart, or the strings of a goddess short on praise but high on expectation, who continues to pull her from the grave? As the Guard and the Order battle through the past and into an impossible future, darkness lurks round every corner. The fight for the world's survival rests with just one. Is it friend or foe who stands in the shadow? And just a reminder that The Price of Freedom by Rosemary Rowan, is being donated to the Ukraine refugee crisis. And here's the blurb for her book. It's one of her Roman British crime series, which was written under her maiden name. All editions can be found online where all books are sold, even her agents donating her commission. Sorry, I don't have the blurb for that, but that's what she's doing. And now, without further ado, let's get you to the guests. So today we have the funniest, hottest writer coming on today. Bestseller, is gonna blow your mind. Probably have you splitting your sides because he gets me to tell these really off the cuff stories. So without further ado, let's bring in Jason.
Hi, how are you doing today?
You know the thing is, like, we always talk about the talk before the show goes on. So a friend of mine's trying to get me to go on Patreon so that I do like 20 minutes with the author on Patreon, and then people pay to watch that for 10 minutes before the podcast comes out. And I'm like, but that's more work. Like, why would I give myself more work?
Yeah, especially when we were just talking about our tendencies of doing more work to ourselves on a regular.
Yeah, because I like to break the ice, get everybody comfortable, talk a little crap, and then, it's funner. It's more fun that way,
Definitely.
Well, I think it is.
So where
Yeah.
do we want to begin?
Well, why don't we start with because you're saying the Farmer series is your most
Yeah,
recent?
my most recent series, which started coming out almost a year ago now, was it's called the Up on the Farm series. And it
Yep.
includes, let's see if I can remember all the books in this series.
Yeah,
So,
I was gonna wait. I'm like, should I look this up or should I just like let him wing it and see if he gets them all? And I'm like, yeah,
that's
you know.
always the thing you go, especially, and this is something that I always think is interesting. Readers don't always get it. Sometimes when we've written things, it's so many years ago from
Oh,
when
I
they
know.
actually read it that when people
Yeah.
start asking you questions, you go, uh,
I'm especially bad for
really?
that. Like if I do Marie's World, like I wrote Maria's World back in 2014, I think it was. 2011 it was. 2011. Right? So that's a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And people ask me and they forget I've rewritten this like 15 times by now. So I forget things and then they're like, "Oh, do you remember this?" No. Sometimes I'll if it's an appearance and my husband's there, I'll look over at him because he remembers the stuff better than I do. He's good at
And
guiding me.
that is why we have to, keep what we call, series Bibles.
Yeah.
Remember
Oh
from book
gosh,
to
yeah.
book. I was looking up something yesterday because I had a character. I'm working on a new series, and I had a
Yeah.
character, and I had to go, how does he like a coffee?
Yeah, like stupid stuff.
Remember.
Yeah.
I have to go back.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the edited pages from the publisher, I was able to go back and go, okay, let's see exactly what I said last time. Just in those little details for continuity
Yeah.
sake that you always got to remember from one book to the next.
Exactly. Like for Marie the World, I have to remember, right, who did she sleep with during that period? Because she's just like she floats around a little bit like a butterfly, so she's not like sleeping with everybody, but she's like had a kiss with somebody, but she might have done something else with somebody else, and she just doesn't conform like most heroines do. So I had to start tracking it, and I started off with a whiteboard, and then I realized the whiteboard wasn't big enough to track everything because I've got twins. So then, like, because the twins both have their own love triangles, right? So I have to kind of keep track of what one twin's doing and then what the other twin's doing. And then there's a half sister in the middle. And then she kind of gets whoever's left over. She sort of bounces between them. And I'm like, yeah, my whiteboard's not big enough.
That's when you have a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
web.
personally, the software I use for tracking a lot of this stuff is Plotter. I found it a number of
Yeah,
years ago,
yeah,
and it has just saved my life on so many things. Just the fact that I can keep I organize plots, I can keep all of them in one file, even from the
yeah,
entire series. I can put their character stuff there. I can add notes when I'm doing things, even notes for future books when I'm thinking about it, so that it's there. Because even when you're with this series that I'm currently writing, which is called Love and Liquidation, which starts coming out in November.
yeah,
It's a romantic suspense, and hence Love and Liquidation.
yeah, exactly. Like, it's kind of,
We're
title gives it at all, like, names it all kind of thing, yeah.
so, it's one of those. I joke that with each book I have to up the body count because it gets suspense.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm gonna have to get on Plotter, but it's like I just got used to Final Draft,
Oh,
you
oh
know,
gosh, for script writing,
for
yeah.
script writing. Yeah, like I just got used to Final Draft, and I'm like, another program I have to learn. Like, there's almost like, but then now that I work with a co-writer who's a lot more diligent than me, I'm like, well, if I have Plotter, it should be easier for the two of us to work and not be constantly asking each other questions like, did we already cover this? Or when did we discuss this? Or, you know what I mean? So it might
Mm-hmm.
be a bit easier. But I'm like, I'm dreading having to get another piece of, like, another thing to add to, like, the pile
I love
almost.
software, so I'm admittedly
Yeah.
a software junkie. So anytime that there's something new, I always play with it.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
did
I
that
like
with
it.
Grammarly. Yeah, I did that with Grammarly for like a year or something.
I keep my Grammarly. I have Grammarly,
Oh,
Pro Writing
I
Aid,
fell out with it.
Hemingway. I have
I fell out with it. I went because I started off with it. Oh yeah, I started off with it for university because they were like, "Oh, this will help your dyslexia or whatever."
mhm.
Didn't didn't help.
Oh, it's
But I tried
gotten
it, like
better.
I tried it for a year just to see. So,
Yeah, it's interesting, especially with one of the conversations that again you're hearing everywhere right now is the issue of AI.
oh
And
God,
I'm like,
yeah.
we've been using some of this technology to
For
help us with our
years.
writing for a long time.
Yeah.
And Grammarly is, a good case of that. So is Pro Writing Aid.
Yep.
Um, but another one that I have, and I'm not affiliates, just as I say this, so they don't think I'm selling
Yeah, you're
anything.
not promoting them. Is yeah,
I,
yeah.
I have AutoCrit, and it's all of them do things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And so for me, for editing, having all of them just helps because I know that there are times when I just and you can read the same sentence 1,000 times and just not catch something when you are way too familiar. And sometimes seeing those things and having that software help can be, the big difference between having something work and something not.
Yeah.
And I'm all about using any of the tools that we have at our disposal, but it
I mean,
is interesting time for all of
it,
this.
it it's interesting because AI, this is my argument on it. It's never going to surpass what a human brain can create.
I
Not
agree.
not in the sense of creative. However, I do think it does need to be regulated so that writers aren't getting screwed out of money. Like, I don't
Hmm.
want the production companies or the publishing companies to be like, oh, well, we know what they've written so far. We can take samples of their work, put it into an AI generated machine, and then they can pour out novels for us or finish novels for us. I hope that never comes about. But saying that, somebody sent me a link to AI article writers and AI essay writers where you can pretty much just plug in what you want to say
Hmm.
and it will create a set number of word count for you to a certain standard. And here's the kicker. Most lecturers now can't tell when you're using them.
Yeah. And
So,
that is, as in my day job, I am a college professor. And
yeah,
so that has been one of the toughest things is
yeah.
knowing that our
I
students are starting to
don't
use this.
bother with it. Like, I'm gonna only say this because I know my lecturer will probably listen to this. I've never tried it out. I've been offered it so many times, but because like I
And I'm on the,
understand the module stuff when it, you know,
and I'll be like, as a professor, I'm on the other end, and that is, I think we need to mess with this. We need to learn this technology. We need to be able to recognize it.
yeah.
And I think the hardest thing right now is figuring out how to incorporate this technology. It's not going away. It, we live in a new time, especially when you're starting to see Microsoft and how they're going to be integrating AI on this. It's going to be part of the. I actually just signed a book contract in that world with the co-editor. We're actually be looking specifically at higher education and using
Yeah.
ChatGPT. And what are the implications of that? And
Yeah.
you know,
I think
from
it's
the
good to
writer,
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
from the writer perspective, a number of years ago, I actually took the first line of one of my novels and put it into one of those old versions that could write, and
Yeah.
it was humorous because it was so bad. Like in one sense,
Oh God,
it
yeah.
made no sense. And so at that point, I
Yeah.
was like, haha, this is funny. Uh,
Yeah.
Knowing it would get better. But then, of course, we had ChatGPT suddenly really hit the market, and you're like, wow, it has gotten a lot
A
better.
lot better, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like with anything, it is only as good as the person who is actually using it. And you really have
Exactly.
to learn how to, the lovely new term that we have all learned this year, prompt engineering. You have to become a prompt engineer for any of
Yeah.
this to work. And
Yeah.
as an author, there are some things that it just does that just saves you time. And that's where I go, use it for where you need it. Like if you're like
Yeah.
in simple things like how do you, if you have to conduct surgery in the middle of a mall, how do you do that?
Yeah, which, we all have to Google at some
Yeah.
point.
Whereas you can just ask it the question and it will give you a little bit more straightforward information. And you can
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, it can be useful if you just need a name or a location or any of that stuff. I was helping a friend of mine who's working on a cozy mystery, and we were trying to come up with names that involve people. And
Oh, I'm bad for names. I
and
got
I,
pulled
I,
up for that recently. Yeah.
well, I just went in and was like, give me, 10 names that involve pickles for people. And, in seconds, I had a list that I could give her.
Yeah.
And so that's where I go, this is the type of stuff that it just makes life faster. And
Yeah,
that's
it
from like,
does.
and it's like with anything, it's all about figuring it out, learning it, and, incorporating the best parts of it and avoiding the parts that don't. And again, it's like I said, it's here to stay. It'll just be
Oh, I
interesting
know.
to see where ultimately all of this is going because, you
I'm
know,
I'm I'm just gonna sit back and watch what the writers achieve with this writers' strike aside because we're not striking here in the UK. So I'm
mm,
curious to see how it's gonna play out in the States. Whether they get the AI enforcement or if they don't, if they get the pay rises or if they don't. Um, yeah, I'm
those
I'm
are great
curious.
questions. And again, I do think you're going to see some ability of using AI
Yeah,
in script writing just because
I
I
can
don't
tell you
think they're going to
now.
manipulate that.
Yeah, like I can tell you from my experience that I'm working with somebody that wrote scripts way back in the day, like for TV.
Okay.
And now I'm writing scripts for what's like today, like today's
Hmm.
version, like today's up to date, this is how you do it kind of thing. And I like the old way. I love the old way because then I don't have to, like, every time I move out of a room, I don't have to set up another scene if I'm working with them because that's how they did it in the old days. They would just say, changes room. Like they wouldn't set up a whole brand new friggin' scene. So if AI can like make that speedier so they can have like every new scene laid out, but I don't have to spend a half an hour detailing, oh, this was in the room and this was in the room and do you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
they could make that easier for writers, yeah, great, but I don't think it's gonna for anything other than that, I don't really think it's gonna work because we like our storylines complicated, if you get my drift.
Yeah. And that's where, again, I'm going to be clear, as of right now,
Yeah,
because I
it'll
will not
change in
be
five
pulling out
years.
my magic crystal ball and predicting where the
That
future
is
is
such
going.
an awful saying, considering my name. Come on. Come
But it's one of those,
on.
I can't make those predictions.
Yeah.
And right now, I think we're safe.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But I do think this is going to, what we already know. The
Hmm.
models themselves are learning, they are getting better. That is also one
Yeah.
of the big concerns is that they are getting better. And what does
And they're
that
getting better
ultimately look
quicker
like?
too. Yeah.
And it's like one of the big frustrations is there is just a flood of AI generated books on
God.
the marketplace. And I don't have a problem, especially, people using AI for helping when writing the books and researching the books, but when it's only written by I think
Hmm.
that you should be able to see right at the beginning that should be flagged, that this is an AI generated.
Yeah.
Not because I
Yeah,
think
I
that
think so
some
too.
people wouldn't buy it, but I just think we should be honest. If you haven't really done
Yeah.
much in the actual writing or editing of said book, then you should be upfront about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the stuff that I write, there's no AI out there that can cover what I do.
mhm,
Because I cover wrestling, I cover romance, I cover dance, and sometimes that's just in one book. So I'm pretty secure in the knowledge that there's nobody going to be ripping me off anytime soon. Um, and if they do, I have a feeling that there's a very large wrestling audience base that will let me know
that,
because and that's what I said to my co-author. I'm like, well, we're safe because computer AI can't write wrestling because it's not something they understand. Computers don't understand it. So me and him will
yeah,
always have a genre we can write it. You know, that's the great thing about wrestling erotica or wrestling romance, as we like to call it, because it's difficult. It's difficult and different.
And, it's your personal style. It's how
Yeah.
you write. But it's like you said, though, one of the things that we know is going to happen is that we're going to get to the point where people train their own model based on their own style. That is
Hmm.
thing, which that again, you can even now say, write me a paragraph or what are in the style of Ernest Hemingway. Those
Yeah.
are the classic authors. A lot of that stuff, especially any of the ones that are the old ones that are in the public domain, which all this stuff was trained on. Yeah, it can do a decent job. I'm worried about when it has access to everything. Um,
Yeah. And it
and that,
will eventually.
yeah, especially when, so much stuff is just out there on the internet, even if you don't want it to be freely available on the internet. The reality is this stuff does get out there. And because of that, nothing is sacred, nothing is safe.
That is very, very true. The other thing that actually I covered with my co-author, which came out this week, the week that we're recording, was we were talking about social media and how you've got to be super careful what you put out on social media.
Yeah.
Because it does come to bite you in the ass because once it's out there, it's out there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can't take it back. So he's been teaching his class about that. And then I was sort of sitting and I'm thinking to myself, I'm so lucky that all the stupid stuff I did as a dancer and as a performer isn't out there. You know, because nobody had cell
Oh,
phones that
yes.
could record it or, anything like that. Aren't you glad? Because
Oh,
I'm
my
sure
God.
you've done silly stuff,
Oh, yeah. Well, I
you
even
know?
remember, the very first time I kind of realized this was new. I had just
Yeah,
graduated with my doctorate. So they were talking just about 2002, 2003. And there were
yeah.
students at my alma mater who recorded themselves. Okay, let me give you some weird context here.
Okay.
I went to West Virginia University for my
Yep.
doctorate, and there was a tradition at the time that we won a football game. Let's burn couches. Don't ask me why. It was just something students did. So
Okay.
we won a football game. Yay. Students burned a couch and they videoed and put it online.
Right.
That was the first time I remember students getting in trouble with the university for something they had put online. And
Yeah.
it was one of those moments where I'm like, we've changed. Something is new here. The fact is,
Hmm.
people were starting to document their stupidity, which
Yeah.
was something also new.
But then it
Let's do our
wasn't,
illegal behavior and record it.
yeah, but wasn't like the reality world starting at that point as well? Like the reality
Yeah.
TV shows were coming out. So like that makes sense. Like that as soon as we saw reality TV start to move into the mainstream, I would
Hmm.
expect that. Because like I remember going to school, Tough Enough was just started, and nobody knew about wrestling in my school before that. Like I knew about it because I was an avid fan, but nobody else did. And then somebody watched an episode of Tough Enough because it was on MTV. And the next thing I know is there's kids locking up in the playground and trying to like record it so they could be on the next season and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, things has changed. Like there's just this kind of light bulb moment in my head of, okay, things have changed. So yeah, I get that. I
It's
get
also
that too
changed.
well.
I was going to say, it's also changed for us as authors because one of
Yeah,
the things that has become really interesting is the whole building your platform and what that
yeah.
has to
Oh my
look
God,
like
yeah.
and the amount of time that you have to put just into the social media and the interactions and having things out there. And, you know,
Constantly, daily, yeah.
I
The joy.
admit I use a scheduler. I do most of my social media posts at
You
the beginning
cheat.
of the
You
month.
cheat. Let's
Oh
be
yeah.
honest. You cheat. I don't
Oh,
cheat. I record it in 3-day lots because I can't be bothered to blog anymore. I can't stand it.
oh God.
So you remember that? Like when we used to do blog tours and stuff. Oh, that's going back like 10 years. But no, like I can't be bothered to blog because dyslexia takes me twice as long to do it. So I just record little videos every single day and I stick them out. I get up in the morning whenever I get up and I'll stick it out as soon as I get up and that's done. And then after my 3 days is up, I'll record another three and I just do it that way. But I don't sit on Twitter as much. Um, I
Oh,
am,
Twitter's become a
I don't,
cesspool.
yeah, yeah. And it's distracting too. Like I used to sit and I'd have the fan page open and I'd have messages coming in for fans because I think I'm close to like 2,000 fans or something on my fan page. And then I also had like Twitter who's got like 1,500 or something. And yeah, I would never get anything written if I sat and I had conversations with people all day. It just doesn't happen. So what I did was I would say, right, I'll look at my Twitter. If anything's of interest, I'll send out a message or I'll send out a tweet or whatever. Or if somebody I follow, because like John Cena was one of the big names that started following me on Twitter.
Ha,
Um, yeah, I don't know why he's following me on Twitter, but he's following me on Twitter. And so like occasionally I might tweet
maybe
him
he
back.
likes wrestling erotic.
Who knows?
You never know.
I hope he does. Like I hope he's read it, but I doubt it. Um, I was actually going to send him a joke, send him a signed copy of my 7 years anniversary edition of Summer of Him, which is when a wrestler gets booked into a wrestling romance conference or erotica convention, and it's like eye-opening experience because you and I both know what they're like, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. I think I not tell that story like the weird box signing story when you were
No.
on. Oh, that one's a good one. Oh wait, I told that story last week, so I don't know if I can get away with it. But essentially,
I can
um,
go back and listen to the other ones.
yeah, you can go back and listen to the
And
podcast. Yeah,
anyone who is currently listening who did not hear that story the first time, you can get the
go
link and
back to
go
next.
listen.
Yeah, go back to next week's because I told it because one of the friends I had, or I have, I should say, was there the night that I had a fan interaction when I was at a wrestling show. And yeah, it was hilarious. So check out last week's because it was a really good story. Check it out last week's and have a laugh about it. Because like that's the other thing. I have some really great stories, and then I have like some that are not so great. Like I think last week I spoke about I shared like some of my dance stories and stuff like last week because Joe and me we when we start talking about Marie's World and stuff like that, we go back to when he was starting in wrestling and I was in dance and all the sort of stuff that went on. Um, so yeah, but which is weird because my co-author is trying to get me to step into the ring with him, and
Oh,
I'm
you
like, no
should.
chance, no
Oh, come
chance, no
on.
way, it's not gonna happen. They were
And then
trying to
put it
talk me
on,
into this last week, and I'm like, it's not happening, it's not
and then you
happening.
need to put it on TikTok for the rest of us to watch.
Yes, I could safely see that happening. So yeah, but no, like it's weird because me and him do so much online together, but we actually still haven't been in the same room as each other.
Wow.
Like it's so weird because we've done virtual tours, we've done book tours, and we've done all this stuff, but we've never actually been in the same room at the same time. So yeah,
Half
I
of
look
my
forward to
writer
that.
friends, it's like that. It's,
Yeah.
we Zoom, we see each other weekly, but yeah, we've not physically ever been in the same place.
Yeah, and
Some of
then when
that
we go to
is
the conventions is like yeah, when we go to conventions, we're hugging each other and we're like, "Oh my God, it's so great to see you!" And then there's got
because
to
these are
be at
like long
least
lost
one of us that
friends.
stops and goes, "Yeah." You're like, but in your head, you're thinking, you got to think for like a second. Oh, wait a minute, this is actually the first time I'm technically meeting you, you know?
Hmm.
But yeah, oh,
But
I have to take my co-author to one of these romantic conventions just to see his face. I'm gonna drag him to one.
It's definitely
Be a
an
bit evil.
experience for those who've never had that.
Yeah, so Jason's had more experience in this field than I have. So Jason, give us like an overview of the chaos and the mania that is a romantic convention.
Well, it's like anything. It kind of depends on the type of convention that you're going to. Some of them are more writer focused, some of them are more reader focused. And those are going to be
Yeah, well, let's just
distinctly
go with the
different.
reader focused ones because they're the crazier ones out of the all of it. Let's be honest.
It's a combination of, obviously the fans want to see you. They want to get your autograph. They want to talk to you. They want to, tell you what they loved about your book, and some of them want to tell you what they didn't. There's
Yeah,
always some people feel the need to tell you that. And you just smile and nod your head and say thank you. And there's the panels, and
yep.
it's a very busy weekend. But it's always fun
It's
because you get to see everyone.
yeah, but then there's always the downside is that somebody gets drunk and somebody ends up in the pool and
That's any convention.
yeah, but like to be fair though, I think it's like girls gone wild a little bit when it's a romance convention and the authors get slipped off the leash a little bit, you know?
There's definitely some of that.
Yeah, yeah. Like the private parties that we all have that we slip into the rooms and stuff, you know.
And that kind of falls into the old, joke of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens at one of these conventions stays there.
That's where I want to take him just because he's the nicest guy to work with, but I'm also like he has no concept of the industry he's been working in for like a decade. You know, I just was like, yeah, I gotta pull him in and actually like let him experience it. I think it'd be funny.
Definitely.
I want to
I
take him
think
to one of the
anyone
drag
should
queen nights.
experience. I'm always for a good drag queen night, so
Yeah,
hey.
you and me need to like go full on like drag queen it out and just go for it.
Yeah, I admit I am one of those. I am a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race in every country.
Yep.
Seen them all.
Yeah, but they're
Currently
fun.
it's
Like
España,
Espanol. Yeah. No, but they
and
are fun.
Mexico is
Like
about
in
to premiere. Again, I know
oh
way too
yeah, I
much.
forgot they're going to Mexico. Yeah.
Yep, with
Yeah.
our favorite
I do you know what I
Valentina.
miss? I miss the romance cruise. You know when you're stuck on the boat for like 5 days?
Never done one of those.
You so need to do one of those. Everybody adores you. You get so much attention on one of those.
Yeah, cruise. I'm always mixed with cruisers. Some of them are great, and then some of them kind of depends on
Hmm. Could
which
you imagine though having
operators
dinner with
don't.
fans every night? Yeah. Well, it's like because they stopped the romance cruises because of the pandemic, and I don't know if they're ever going to restart them again.
Oh, I'm sure. Uh, I
Yeah,
just think we're still in that. Is this really over phase?
yeah, yeah. I'm still like I'm still getting the boosters and stuff, and I'm like,
You and me
eh,
both.
yeah. They got
And
me
it was
two
like,
weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
oh, it did. Fine. I
Yeah,
lasted
they
for
they.
3 years before it got me this spring.
Oh no, I haven't gotten COVID yet. No, I got
Oh,
my booster 3 weeks ago.
oh no! It finally my number got pulled at the beginning of April, and
Oh, that sucks.
but I had all the boosters. I right on the antivirals.
Yep.
Was you'll appreciate this. So I knew something was weird. So like I thought it was like we had one of those days that was like 70 one day, 90 the next, and so sometimes when that happens, my allergies,
Yeah.
especially in the. So I was like,
Well,
hey, this isn't that bad. But then it was
could you
weird.
imagine what it would have been like if you hadn't had it though? Like
Oh,
if
I
you hadn't
know.
had everything?
Oh, I know. But so I took a test and I didn't like the results of that one. So I took a different one. Still wasn't happy with those results. So I took a third one.
So you're
By
like
this
phoning
point,
the
when I
doctor.
by this time I'd taken three different tests by three different companies, manufactured in three different countries, and
Yeah.
I was like, I guess I have it.
Yeah. It's the kind of the idea of, oh God, I gotta admit. Like, I always laugh. We had this with this guy that performed with us. Gosh, he was like 18. I was just about to leave home, so I was 19. And he did the same thing. I can't remember what he got, but he got this like infection thing from sleeping with a girl. And he took three different kinds of tests before he went to the doctor. And three times, like the pharmacist was like, "You've got it. There's no denying this. You've got it." And he like was blatantly refusing to admit that he had it. Um, and then he literally turned to me. No, none of us really knew what the results were. We knew something was up, but we were sitting and we were doing like we were on break at the drama rehearsals, and he turns to me and he says, "Well, I got it." And I went, "You got what?" Being dim-witted as I am, I was like, "Oh, what did you get?" And then so he tells me, and I'm like, "So how many of this cast needs to go get tested now?"
It
And he
is the
was like,
theater.
he turned to me and he was like, "One, ouch. Two, that's offensive. And three, I don't know." I'm like, "Well, I know I'm not." So yeah, but he was like, I used to go and smoke cigarettes at the back of the theater with him all the time. Um, and just the stuff he'd get into. Like, I remember we were in, I was 18, he was 17, and we were doing a show. And four girls walked in and slapped him. Four.
Wow.
Because the four of them had figured out that he had slept with each of them in like a queue.
Yeah.
And he texts the wrong girl the same like he texts all the
Oh,
girls the same message, but with the wrong name.
that's one way to get caught.
Yeah, and of course they're friends too. So they're all sitting and they were all having coffee. And their phone goes off kind of because he did it one after the other, and he sent the same text to the wrong girl's phone number. So they walk in and they literally watched him get slapped four times across the face. And I'm like, "Did you learn anything?" And he went, "No." It was a hell of a night though.
At least he's honest.
Yeah, he was honest. Oh gosh, he was honest. Um, but
He's like,
yeah,
I didn't learn
he was the
anything.
reason that I turned around after that and I said, I'm never dating a guy that performs in anything, whether it's acting, wrestling, any of it. Just it's not happening. Because he was like the prime example of what happens if you do. So yeah. He
Yeah,
made
I
me
did.
change it from I'm never dating a wrestler to I'm never dating anyone who's in performance arts.
Showmances are real, and
Yeah. I
it's
had to the worst thing was I had to for that season or for that show, I had to pretend to be his girlfriend. Oh, it was awkward. I never even let him
understandably.
kiss me, which was hilarious because we did the fake stage kiss. It's when you turn your back to the
Uh-huh.
audience, and he tucks his head into your shoulder, and you tuck your head into his shoulder, but you're not actually touching.
I think anyone who's done the theater has.
It's had to do it, yeah, yeah. Well, the thing was, I literally said to the director, I was like, if I kiss him, I'm going to catch something, so I'm not doing it. And then he would turn around and say, oh, like, you know, he would always try and come back with something, but he never had anything. So it
You
was
know,
always like,
it's true.
so he'd always turn around and he'd go, well, I don't want to kiss you because, and then there would be dead air. And then I just start filling it in. I'd be like, oh, because I look better than you? Oh, thanks. Or what? Because I'm not a slut? Oh, thanks. You know, like I would just come up with like the weirdest little things I could stick in when he did the dead air. And the director tried for like a month. But nobody had it. Like everyone for like the whole time we did dress rehearsal, the whole way through the performance week, nobody had a clue we were not dating because we totally sold those characters. And then as soon as that was over, I'm like, Never kissed him, never been near him, never will be.
Which is
Like
kind
I
of
made a
interesting
very public announcement in school, yeah.
if the cast didn't even realize that you weren't
No,
really kissing.
no, nobody did. But they honestly thought we were hooking up, but we weren't. We would just go and sit in a room. At the back of the theater, there was like this old smokers room before they got rid of the smokers thing.
Oh, the old smoker rooms. Yes.
Yeah, and we would just sit in the smoking room, and anyone would come down that little corridor. We would say, "No, you're not. You can't come in." And we would just sit there and we'd smoke cigarettes and we would talk, but we would never, and that was where the illusion got built. Like we just made a point of, I would make sure I arrived at the same time as him, or we would get seen getting coffee together, or you know what I mean? Like we just planted things, so even the cast believed it. That's
Right.
genuine dedication, I think.
I'll
Because
say
that's where we
that's
couldn't
acting.
stand each other. Yeah. That was always my problem. I always put myself far too much into my characters. Like I always like try and completely 100%. If I can believe it myself, then I always think the audience believes it.
Which, again, that's acting.
Yeah. But the other problem is
But
is is turning it off at the end, and then remembering, oh crap, I'm actually like this is my real life. Oh, I need to go back to the
one of
real world now.
one of my favorite musicals is a musical called Next to Normal, and
I
it's one
know
of those
that one, yeah.
shows. You know that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a time when there was an actual couple that were playing the two leads,
Yeah.
and they talked about at the end of the night, even when they went home, they kind of had to go to their separate corners just
Yeah.
to decompress because of how emotional the roller coaster of that show is.
Yeah,
And because
that's
they
true.
really just invest so much of themselves into that. And
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I miss acting like a lot, but I miss it because it's like for the time that you're working as a group, there's almost like that special friendship that everyone
Mhm.
creates. And the bond, like you'll understand this. Like there's a bond that you get formed because you're literally with each other so much.
Yeah.
Or you're helping each other because there's always some idiot that's last to get off script. That's last to get, that last to memorize their lines or whatever. And so you're always helping each other and you're always having stupid conversations. And then there's always the cast night out so you have and you get, where you go out and you do stupid stuff. I miss all that. Like I miss the friendship. I don't miss the performance or the 24 hours before dress rehearsal where I'm freaking the hell out because I'm pretty sure I've just forgot every line I'm supposed to memorize. Like I don't miss any of that, but I miss the adrenaline rush of going on stage for the first time, of working with a group of people that I respect or I like or that I've just been randomly thrown into.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And there's just a camaraderie that people who've never acted just don't understand. And
exactly. Yeah.
it's
I
just
because
such a distinct, different type of situation.
Yeah, like because I was saying to my co-author the other day, I was like, I would love to experience one time to go out and be a valet, like just once, just so I know what it feels like. Because I've written about it so much, but I've never actually gone out and experienced it. And he made the joke the other day of, oh, I'll have to get you to come out and be somebody's valet. And I'm like, no, I'm too old. I'm 34. No one's gonna believe I'm a valet. And he's like, yeah, but you don't look 34-year-old. You're like a model skinny. So he's still trying to talk me into it. He's like, oh, well, yeah, come, come do it. And I'm like, oh, what are you gonna do? Fly me to Germany for one night? Like, that doesn't make sense. And he's like, oh, no, no, we'll get you to do something. Like, it's the same as a lot of my friends that are in acting. They're trying to get me to come back. So like a friend of mine, she does she basically started out as a wrestler. She then became a dancer and then she's gone back to acting. And she was saying to me the other day, she's like, "Oh, you gotta come back, Crystal. You're selling out by writing books. Your face is too pretty to be behind the book. You need to be in front. And I'm like, oh, but it's so much hassle. And she's like, oh, no, no, no. Like, we'll come up with something. We'll come up with something. And I'm like, I don't know. So yeah,
Okay, I just have to
there's,
say, it's so much hassle, and you're
yeah.
writing books.
Yeah, yeah. Well, nobody, yeah, but that's the thing. Like, everyone thinks, oh, writing a book is easy. You just sit down and you do it. No,
No,
no. It's never ever been that easy for me.
it is a
Painful.
giant time commitment.
Yeah, yeah. The good thing is, like, the other thing is, like, when you're writing, you don't have to worry about working out or, any of that stuff either. I
You
do
do
it,
have the
but
ability just to sit in your pajamas in front of a computer
yeah.
if you need to.
Oh, yeah.
That was
I,
my yesterday.
that was my yesterday too. And then I was like, till I was like, what was it, 8:45 in the morning? And then I was like, oh crap, I got a podcast. I need to go get some clothes on. I'm like zooming down the hall, full speed, searching, like, oh, what can I get up to, because I was like, damn, because I always have my camera on when I do the podcast, so that my guests can see me. And so yeah, so I had a
Which, if you're
panic
wondering,
moment.
yes, I can see her right now.
And I'm not that cute.
Aw.
I know, like this is my co-writer's thing. He keeps saying to me, "Why do you have self-deprivation issues?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I was a performer. Like that's how you get a tough skin. You make fun of yourself."
That is
But
true.
but he still doesn't get it. He still doesn't get it. So it's just cute. It's cute. So, you know, I'm sure he'll get used to me.
And you've been co-writing for how long?
Well, me and this person, we just started writing about three weeks ago. We haven't found a groove yet. We're kind of in that new space of trying to find a groove. But me and Joe's been working together for years, so he's used to me texting him like in a panic, talking me down for like 45 minutes via text message because I've been an idiot or whatever, you know. Or I've written myself in a corner and I can't figure out how to get out. And then he's like, oh, so that's my job today? Okay. And then 2 minutes later, he sends me the answer, you know? So he's more used to me. But yeah, Joe and me,
And
we
that
used to
is,
work a lot of hours together.
I was gonna say, that's always one of those things that is something we don't always talk about, is that situation when you have written yourself into a corner and you have to
Oh
go,
gosh,
how
yeah.
do I get out of this? And sometimes having those author friends that you can use as your sounding boards and be like,
Yeah.
here's the problem. I don't know what to do. And be
we
able to go,
we all
hey,
have those moments of do we go get the bottle of whiskey now or do we actually go talk to a friend and not get hammered?
or do we, have our author friends that we, go, hey, I need
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, but
Please tell
the
me what to
whiskey
do.
does sound a little bit more tempting sometimes.
Yeah, not for me. I'm more of a vodka guy.
Yeah, you're vodka and I'm not even allowed to drink now, so I don't even have the excuse of writing drunk.
I've never written intoxicated. I don't think that would be a very good idea.
I've done it. I've done it. And actually it came out better than when I was sober. I don't know what that says about me or if it like somehow negates the dyslexia or whatever. But I wrote when I first wrote Summer of Him, I'd gotten my hands on mulled wine 7 years ago. I got
Oh,
mulled wine. And so I was heating it up and I was making it stronger essentially. And I was drinking it at night and then I was like barreling in just writing with this stuff and I'm pretty sure I got drunk a couple of nights. Um and yeah,
I love that.
like
I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like I
If you
remember
don't
getting to
remember,
bed.
that's a pretty good sign that yes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like pretty sure. Pretty sure. But I stopped drinking after that. My publishers can tell like when I've written certain material drunk and when I haven't, so Yeah. She says I'm better drunk. She did.
And,
She's
you
like,
know,
Crystal, go get drunk. So
we all have our different writing processes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I gave it up. It's not good for your liver. But I gave it up, and since giving it up, I feel healthier. But I think my editor is less healthy.
I'm one of those, I'm a social drinker. So predominantly, like if I'm drinking, it's just thing. I do have my neighbor that we became
Right.
really good friends during the pandemic because pretty much we were staying at home. So the only people we ever saw physically, so we would get together every like week and a half. It got us a year and a half of pandemic. But
Well,
we still get together, every few weeks now and try to solve the world's problems and drink.
yeah. Well, we all have to do that, though, to be fair.
And we did take a little bit of a victory lap yesterday because certain someone had a second indictment.
Yes, I seen that. Yeah.
And,
I was wondering if you were going to
Sodom
mention that.
Croida.
the, I always laugh because I say, oh, this show's politic free. It never is. It never is.
Life isn't politic free.
Yeah, well, writing
Like,
is politics.
how do you not?
Hmm.
Like the book that I'm currently working on has, you know, the villa. And I didn't want it to be serious. I didn't want it to didn't want to go to but there's still so many other things like in the world. So much, and people are and there's people out there who think that certain people in our society are lizard people.
It's just crazy that I think the whole situation. But here's something that I was going to bring up with you because you'll understand this kind of better than most people is the politics behind publishing
Mm-hmm.
because that's becoming a thing now where people are politicking to get better deals and they're politicking to get more marketing budgets and stuff like that. And rather it being about the work we put in, it's now all become about who can out politic somebody else, or whether your agent or your editor can out politic somebody else. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I also think, well, I'm going to completely agree with you. I also think it's much harder now to politic.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
reality is because we have seen the constant, one publisher eating another publisher, which eats another publisher.
yep,
The reality is we have fewer and fewer of the big publishers, so there's less competition across the board.
yeah,
And so where you typically see most competition are in your smaller independent publishers, and they don't produce it.
mm-hmm,
So unless it's just something that is ridiculously breakthrough or one of those giant named authors, the old days of those lovely seven-figure advances
oh,
are
they're
few
gone.
and far between. And
Yeah,
that
they're gone.
it's a different world. And so publishing has changed so much. I think some things are for the better. I do love the fact that,
Mm-hmm.
especially with self-publishing, the democratization of
Yeah,
publishing, that you don't have just these gatekeepers who dictate what they think society is going to want.
yeah, that's true.
So that I think is good. I at the same time, there is the flip side of that. That is because it's so much harder to dig through
It's harder to make a living
the
at it
quality.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some people that are still just amazing that
Hmm.
I'm awed by. One of my favorite authors is a woman by the name of Amanda M. Lee. She's a cozy mystery, predominantly paranormal cozy mysteries.
Yeah.
And
I know
if
who
you
she
look,
is.
she's consistently one of the top earners on
Yeah.
Amazon. And I'm again, all of it is stuff she does. She basically runs her own little publishing empire. She's putting out at least one novel a month, something you're about to learn to do,
Yeah, no. Like an idiot I signed that deal. Yeah.
which
Yes.
is impressive, you know,
It's
to
not
be
impressive.
able to
It's
do that.
nuts. Like there's a reason that they call it the rarest contract in publishing.
Yes, I have no desire.
Yeah, you're
I
like
like my
you like the whole
write a book.
relaxed schedule compared to like the oh god, I actually have
Well,
deadline stuff.
mine is more like I'm going to put it off, put it off, put it off.
Yeah.
I'll do some research, put it off, put it off. Oh no, I have to get this written.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's what I'm like
I'm ready
now.
to
But
rock.
thank God I've got a back catalog that's like I mean, I literally could probably get away with not writing a single word for a year
Wow.
because I have so much back catalog that I've written over the years. And then I could worry about certain things. But what I stupidly agreed to was I would finish my series,
Oh,
which is where the cropper comes in because Joe and me we just finished plotting the whole of Marie's World series, which is 64 books.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then like, because we agreed on that. And then we agreed I've agreed to do 6 books for the Waking series. And I've
Okay.
got 4 books for the summer, like the seasonal one, which is like summer of him, winter of her, spring of them, autumn of something, you know? So,
Oh, the joys of making it.
well, I don't know. Like I'm procrastinating right now because I've handed in 3 books at least. I've handed in 3 books. Um, which is book number 5, which is Layla went in, which is the you're getting to see the other twins' point of view
Hmm.
now. So I've just handed her in, but I'm looking at like the list of how long that series is, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to go write it soon. But at the same time, I'm thinking I gotta write the second one to the Waking series because I haven't done that yet. Like it's in transition. It's like I wrote it as a script first, like the second one as a script because I thought, oh, that'll be easier if I just take the script and I put in description. Oh, it'll be easier.
Novelization of a script is oh.
Yeah, yeah. I thought, oh, that'll be easier. No, I'm like realizing as I'm going through the dialogue that works in a film does not work in a book. So I'm like rewriting the entire thing constantly. So yeah.
I so my background is interesting that you bring that up that specific issue
Yeah.
because when I was in graduate school, I was working on my master's degree. We were able to take like new classes. At that point, I was working on a statistical project. I was overlooking at that stuff, so I looked around and I found a graduate class.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm going to take playwriting just because I was like, this will be something interesting. Again, going back to our
Yep.
theater conversation, I've always been a huge theater fan. The fact that I
Yep.
live 90 minutes north of Broadway right now is amazing.
Heaven. Even though
I
you're currently suffocating in the wildfires.
oh my gosh, that has just been it's been
Hell.
wild to see an orange sky. I did see blue
Yeah.
sky yesterday where I am, so
Well, that's a good
we're
sign, right?
yes, it is. It was the first time I'd seen a blue sky in days. So I took
Yeah.
this playwriting class, and you know, in this we taught story structure, we taught dialogue, we taught some of those just basic things that anyone needs to have when telling a story.
Yeah.
And when I decided to take up writing fiction, those same skills became so useful.
Yeah, it
And
does.
even some of the things that you learn, just about, writing dialogue. Is it a
Mm-hmm.
perfect transference? No. But
No.
you learn more about natural language and what it needs to
Mm-hmm.
sound like versus, how we actually talk, which if we actually wrote dialogue the way we actually talk, it
It would
would
be
be
atrocious.
crazy. Exactly. I mean, just trying to figure out the punctuation on some of our sentences that go on forever would
Yeah,
be
I'm
horrible.
terrible for that. You know I'm terrible for that.
But
Yeah.
so it was nice, to see how much what I learned there really just transferred over. And that's why I think having any kind of fiction writing background
Yeah.
helps you if you make this switch into writing fiction, prose.
Oh gosh. There's somebody that I'm gonna send you a link to when we get off of this. Because when I started out learning to write, I was writing dance, which is a totally different beast again,
Mm-hmm.
as you know. And so I would write dance storylines, but I overcomplicate everything because that's just how my brain goes. So
I understand.
yeah, and of course, I'm growing up in a time where wrestling is hugely predominant in my life because all my friends, when I was in hospital, all my friends watched it. And in fact, I still have some of my friends' DVDs, wrestling DVDs, in the hall that he kept. And every day or every time I would see my friend, he would come in and he'd throw a Raven tape or DVD in my lap. And I would be like, "Oh, what are we watching?" And he'd be like, "Oh, let's watch ECW," or let's watch this guy." And it was like interviews where he talks about psychology and all this important stuff that you need for when you write scripts. But what I didn't realize was how much of an impact he'd have on my career as a writer because
Mm-hmm.
I took everything that I learned from watching hours and hours and hours of video on him and I started putting it not only in my dancing but in my acting and into my novels and now into my screenwriting. Um, so he became like one of the hugest influences on me. And that guy, for being one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. In fact, I think he is the smartest person I've ever met in my life. He takes a character and he makes that character 100% believable, both in a wrestling ring and outside, which is absolute amazing skill. Because people would actually physically believe his story so much that when he'd meet the fans outside the ring, they'd still believe the story. Like they couldn't tell where the wrestler ended and he began. So yeah, I'll have to send you over a link to his podcast because I think his podcast is funny, but then if you actually go and watch some of the videos of some of the things he did, he was far out there before I was far out there. Like, because like you've heard some of my stories before. Um, Ones that I might mention later, like the one with the fish. Um,
Tuna.
which I think is hilarious that you've actually reused that in a conversation. You know.
Because it was just so. Okay, now you actually have to tell the story because it was just
Oh
so absurd.
jeez.
You just and I it's so the way that you originally told it was just so visual, and I'm just like picturing you trying to go hang your clothes and dealing with sea life at the same time.
So I was staying at my grandmother's house. I was 16. I was staying at my grandmother's house, and she said, "Go hang out the washing, but here, take this tin of sardines." It was sardines. Here, take this tin of sardines. And I said, "Well, what do I need a tin of sardines for? To hang out washing? That doesn't make sense." She's like, "Trust me, take it." Now, of course, she knew what was going to happen to me before I went down the stairs, but that's beside the point. So I went down the stairs with this tin of open sardines balancing on top of washing. I get down, I set this, I still have the tin of sardines, and then I see this little furry thing start kind of appearing over the wall, the seawall. And I'm like, the hell is that? Nope, just ignore it. So I moved the tin down, And then I start hanging up the watching. And the next thing I have is these otters, which are vicious little buggers, come out of the water and they start nipping at my ankles because I haven't given them the sardines. So they start chasing me around the garden because they want their sardines. And of course, I'm a dim-witted person, not realizing that, oh, there's a tin of sardines I could give them. Finally, they get this tin of sardines, and I go back inside. And backs of my ankles, I have little teeth marks on the backs of my
Oh
ankles.
my gosh.
And she said to me, she's like, why didn't you feed them the sardines? Because you didn't tell me I had to feed them the bloody sardines. So yeah, that's the story in question. But it wasn't just that. Like growing up next to the ocean where I did, we saw whales killing seals. We saw seals that would like try and go with your fins if you were in the water. I had a friend, this guy that I used to swim with. He was quite chubby, and that was why we were doing sea swimming with him. And this poor guy would get met, like this seal would try and hump him every time he went in the water. Every time. And it didn't matter how fast he swam or where he swam, the seal always seemed to follow him. And it used to make him so paranoid. It was hilarious. I knew I'd be okay as long as there wasn't any whales around. If he was with me, because then the seal would attack him and not me. So yeah, I used him as bait a lot. Like he messaged me the other day, and he's like, "I didn't realize that you were a cow to me growing up." And I'm like, "How?" And he's like, "You were using me as seal bait." I was
And
like,
you're
"Well,
like, yes, yes, I
yeah,
was.
yeah, I was." Like, I
And you
never
were very
denied
good
it. Like,
seal bait.
you know. So yeah, but he went through like 4 dry suits in 3 years with this one
Oh my
particular
gosh.
seal because it just wouldn't give up. Like, would not give up. But he lost all his weight because he had to swim so fast just to get away. So yeah, the delights of growing up on an island where you've got nothing to do, you know.
Well, you had things to do. You running from seals.
Well, yeah, yeah, like there's because I was out with my husband a couple of years ago, and we were staying with my parents. We went down to have fish and chips at the pier, and my dad had warned me about a seal that was particularly demanding. Demanding is a good word. Demanding. And what we watched was him jumping onto the backs of fishing boats. He was taxing the fishing boats as they were coming in.
Oh wow.
So and he was like 800 pounds or something like that. 800, 900 pounds he was
That's a
massive when I saw him.
big old seal.
Yeah, and he would just slide onto the end of the boat. They would have to give him 4 fish so he would leave. Now, the boat's already full of fish, so when he sits on the end of it, the boat's like sinking. So they always had the fish waiting for him because they were like, well, we don't want to sink with the catch. So he'd get fed, he'd slide off it, and he would sit in the water and he'd wait. But if there was no boats coming in, he would harass the tourists. He would climb up onto the pier and he would harass you till you gave him a portion of your fish and chips.
Well, because he learned that he could do that and get away
Yeah,
with it.
yeah, exactly. And it's
In
not
that
like we have,
respect, smart seal.
yeah, he's still around actually. He's a really old seal now, but yeah, he's still around. He literally goes and he lies on the harbor when he knows that the whales are coming. And he will just lie there. And nobody will touch him. Nobody will go near him. And he'll just lie there. And he'll wait till the whales bugger off. And then he goes back in the water. And then when he knows they're coming back, because they always circle Shetland at least once before
Mhm.
they move on to the main grounds. And so he'll wait. And he'll find a comfy spot and he'll wait and wait them out and then he'll go back in. And that's why he's lasted so long. The otters
Animals are
don't last
amazing.
quite as long though. They do get eaten.
Oh, well,
Yeah. The whales got them last time that they were there. They got the otters and they got the dumb seals, the seals that don't get out the water. So yeah. So yeah, it's weird. Because my dad, every time he drives through the main town, which is Lerwick, he'll stop just to make sure the seal's still there.
oh,
You know?
he has a friend.
Yeah, because what my dad did not admit to my mom for the longest time was they had an otter that lived just down from their house. And the guy that owned the house before them, he used to tie a fish to his shed door, right? So that the otters could have food. But he never told my parents any of this. So when they bought the house and they moved into the house, this otter started appearing. And they
Oh
didn't
no.
know where it was coming from or why it kept coming. And he was looking for his daily snack. And it wasn't like a small fish he gave him. It was like a full-sized salmon he tied at the door handle. And the otter also would keep all the mice out the house. So when mom and dad moved in, they had a choice: feed the otter or get chased by said otter. And it eventually they got the animal control to move it on. But so my dad fed it for like a year because he felt guilty that he's like, oh, we can't starve the thing, and my mom's like, don't feed it, and he's like, no, I can't, I have to feed it. So I totally stooged my dad into my mom. It's like my dad's pretty good at stooging me, so I'm like, oh, I'll just return the favor, you know. So yeah. But I was saying in last week's episode, my mom just stewed all of my less than pristine stories to my dad a couple of years ago. So all those awful naughty stories that I didn't want him to know about, he now knows. I'm like,
Oh,
thanks, mom.
I do that to my parents periodically. I'll
Yeah.
drop in stories from like, yeah, I remember when we were in high school and I did this, and they're like, you did what?
Yeah, yeah. But my dad was
Like,
so
yeah, the things you
oblivious.
just didn't know back then that are okay now that we're, you know, 30 years past that and you can't ground me.
Yeah, well, no, my dad did. My dad literally came and lived with me for 2 weeks. It was weird. No, I was like, my dad had no idea about my comings and goings as a teenager. Because I got really smart. The problem with living in Shetland is everybody knows you. If your dad is popular, and my dad was
Hmm.
popular. He was the debt collector, so everybody knew.
I don't know if that would make me popular or.
Oh no, it did. Like, because everybody wanted to know where he was and what he was doing. So, And the problem was, I also had a very eccentric family. My cousin is a DJ, and he was very eccentric. And so they just assumed I would be. And I was very popular from a very young age because I stand out. I've always stood out. I've always been something like that. So the first time, my dad never told me he was a debt collector until I was in high school, and this kid walked up and slapped me in the middle of the school because my dad took his dad's fishing boat.
Oh,
And that was when I was like, wait, hold on a second. Why did I just get slapped in the middle of the school? Like,
and you're like, I
normally if
didn't
I
do it.
get smacked, I've done something to deserve it. This time I'm getting hit for what reason? And it made no sense to me. So I went home at lunchtime and I'm like, Dad, yeah. Because of course I just thought you worked with fishermen. I didn't ever pay attention. I'm like, what is it you actually do? So I tell him what happened to me. And he's like, the kid did what? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, yeah, I debt collect. It's like, you didn't think to tell me that before I started high school? Oh, it never came up. So yeah. So I learned to be quicker on my feet after that.
I would, yeah, imagine so.
Yeah. Considering he's the only debt collector that was on the island.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely
Yeah.
that definitely makes a difference.
And then I found out I was 15, I found out I had a doppelganger on the island. So there's
Interesting.
like a version of me, but she's chunkier. And she's the same name as me. And she looks so much like me. My dad has nearly crashed the car twice, thinking I'm walking down the street, and it's not me, right? And her name is Crystal as well, right?
Oh gosh.
So she would get herself into trouble, and I would get blamed for it. And I'd be like, wait, I didn't do that. And they're like, oh, well, who did? And I'm like, my doppelganger. And they're like, you have a doppelganger? I'm like, yeah, there's a girl that looks like me, same name, you know. Then I'd have to explain it. And she stayed on an island that was further out than the mainland. I stayed on the mainland island, and she stayed on this tiny little island called Walza. Ah, man, we used to go back and forth. See, the day I finally met her, I was like so ready to like slap her because I'd gotten like so much trouble over the years because of the things she'd done, you know? And she knew what my
That's
last name
funny.
was, so she would just like change her last name to my name so I would get the trouble for whatever she'd just done. Yeah,
And respect to her, that was kind of genius.
it was, yeah. Except for the thing was, I'm getting like girls squaring off at me because she went and snogged someone's boyfriend, and I didn't know
Oh,
anything about it. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. Like, what, what the hell? So yeah, that went on for years. Um, but now we're not on the same island, and my dad has to constantly remind himself I don't live there anymore. And the girl he's seeing walking down the street is not me. But she's had a kid now, so it's less like she's less like me now. So, but yeah, I was never expecting my doppelganger to stay less than 3 hours from me.
it's always interesting when that happens. I actually had
Yeah,
one of those when I was in graduate school, and everyone constantly was confusing us. I never met him, but everyone was constantly telling me, "Oh, I saw you there," and I
yeah,
was like, "That wasn't me." Or you.
but
My favorite is, "Well, you ignored me," and you're like, "No, I didn't ignore anyone.
yeah,
That
yeah.
wasn't me."
And you start to kind of question your own mental state as well because you're like, well, did I
Yeah.
or didn't I? Was I there? Was I not there? You know, like that was the thing about me. And because I drank so much when I was a teenager, I also had to kind of think, would I have done that? I had to start asking the question, would I have done whatever it is I'm being accused of? You know, because that was another thing. Like I would be accused of doing something and I'd be like, but would I have actually done that? And then I'd think about it for a minute. And I got really good at talking myself out of situations because of that. Which came in handy when I went to wrestling. When I went down and did my first wrestling show. So
How so?
I was the writer. I didn't get in the ring. I stayed in the crowd for the night.
You
But
stayed
yeah,
where you were the most comfortable.
yeah, essentially. However, I did not manage to talk myself out of an endless amount of trouble that weekend. So yeah, thank God my best friend was staying in my room that weekend. Yeah,
I have been there. Having a roommate prevents things from happening.
it's good because then you can say, well, yeah, because I came down one morning and this guy had made up this huge fantastic story about me, and I looked over at my best friend and I said, would you like to repeat to them what actually happened last night? And she goes, yep, Crystal came into the room. She got in her pajamas. We climbed into the bed we were sharing and she passed out. She totally debunked the guy's story in like 2 seconds.
It's like not nearly as entertaining as you seem to
No,
think it was.
yeah. Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong. I was extremely flattered, but I knew it wasn't me. But it did turn out he confused me with a girl that he picked up at the wrestling show. So, which happens apparently. That was the same weekend that one of my wrestling buddies phoned me and he's like, okay, I kind of did a boo boo. I slept with the driver who's driving me. I can't get her to leave my bedroom. Can you come
Oh
upstairs
no.
and pretend that you're my girlfriend so that she'll leave?
Oh my gosh.
So I went upstairs, I knocked on the door. I'm like, hey. And then I walked in the room, I gave him a hug. And then I was like, and then I just did this like big monologue speech. I blew up, the pretend blow up thing. And she didn't get the hint. She just sat there, like, just sat there staring at me. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake. Like, and I'm like acting my ass off. And then he totally blows the whole thing by hugging me again. So, like, there's no way I can do the whole routine anymore. So I just decided, oh, I'm gonna be blunt. I'm gonna be
You
blunt.
need to leave.
I turned around and I says, like, you're his one night stand. I know you're his driver. I know you gotta drive him to the next town, but he's not interested. He's had his one night stand. You're done. Um, she didn't talk to me ever again, actually. But I did him the favor. I got rid of her, so even if it did get me, like, I
This
covered my
pink
drinks
eye.
after that. Yeah, I was pretty sure I was gonna get like something slipped in my drink or something. So I was like, I was not having any drinks that I didn't open after that.
Which in general is just a
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think growing up in Shetland, people did sort of like roofie people because they thought it was funny.
oh
So I
wow.
always had that kind of thumb over my drink thing, or I would walk around with my hand over the drink because I have no trust. And then when I went to wrestling, the first thing I said to my friend, my best friend, I was like, I love you, but you need to cover your drink the entire time we're here because I don't know what any of these guys are taking and I don't want you to get dosed. And lucky I did say that to her because somebody got roofied that weekend. I don't know who it was, but somebody got roofied that weekend. And I was so glad it wasn't her and it wasn't me.
That's horrible.
So, yeah. But yeah, that was kind of the running gag for like the longest period. Crystal doesn't trust anybody. Like, of course I don't
Well,
trust people.
yeah, I was like, see, if that was something I was facing on a regular basis, I wouldn't be trusting anyone either.
Yeah, I mean, I worked as a bartender, and I had a friend who worked in one of the bars with me, and he was known. He was known if like if you said, "Yeah, I want Wicked with the twist," right? Like that was how you would order it. He would slip ecstasy into your drink for you. Like Blue Wicked was the drink, and then the twist was the ecstasy. So like I learned really quickly that, this was something that he did for people. And I was just like, oh, okay. 18, slightly naive. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah. I always made sure that the guy whoever was serving me knew what drink I was ordering. And I never ordered anything with a twist. And I didn't like ordering cocktails. Because cocktails is where they can get you, by the way. It's the
Well,
quickest way for somebody to roofie you. Apparently.
that took a dark turn.
Yeah. Oh, I do that. I do that all the time. It's weird because one of the people I was working with recently, he's like, Crystal, you're like you. It's like you've got ADHD. You never stay on one topic for longer than 30 seconds. I
How does
kind
that
of starting
affect
to
your
agree with
writing?
him now. Kind of agreeing with him. Kind of.
But how does that impact your writing?
Thing is, though, when I'm writing a novel or writing a script, I can stay 100% focused on the story, but my brain's doing 50 things at the same time.
Hmm.
But
Wow.
I've never been diagnosed with ADHD. I got dyslexia, but that's it. And then, because I did a dyslexia test last year, and they said I'm high functioning dyslexic. And I kind of looked at her funny, and I went, "Well, what's high functioning about me exactly?" And she was like, "Yeah, like it was a total off the cuff, and this is something that happens with me is I don't always think about what I'm going to say before I say it. I just say it." So she's this really high graded education psychologist, and I turn around and say, "Well, what's
Hmm.
high?" you know, and she says to me, she goes, "Well," she says, "your your brain your brain gets bored so easily. You're essentially having to do more than one thing at the same time." And I was like, "Oh, does that mean I'm intelligent?" And she's like, "Yeah, you're highly intelligent. You just never had an IQ test." And I'm like, "I don't want an IQ test." And she's like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "Because I'll fail it." And she's like, "How?" And I'm like, "Because I can't do math." And she's like, "Oh, well, that's not what an IQ test is anyway." I'm like, okay. But I only found this out recently. My mother and my father have high IQs, but in
Hmm.
different things. And my brother's got an extremely high IQ, but they never tested me. So I'm curious now. And my mother won't tell me
Well,
what she thinks I am either. So,
well, the reality is even when it comes to IQ tests,
mhm.
it doesn't take in everything into account.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
different people do better in yeah, I know a lot of people
Mhm.
who and some of it is because math forces you to be slow, and so that's especially if you're not able to follow it. So that things are, if you're the person who likes to cook, but you like to wing it,
Mm.
then yeah, math is going to be a problem just because it's so formulaic.
Well, see, the thing is, I can't do logic. I've never done logic. But put me in a writing situation or a creative situation where I have to problem solve. I'm really good at that. Like, I can come up with solutions on my feet really quickly. But if I have to sit and do it from multiple choice, that was where I used to go, really? Like, that's a test? Like, what? But, like if I was doing it verbally, I can do it fine. It's just sitting and reading it, meh. So yeah, but they reckon that I was high functioning creatively and with language, visual creation, and like reading people was my other thing. I can read people really well.
That's good.
Yeah,
I think is a very important skill that a lot of people do not have.
yeah, because that was the good thing about because I started acting when I was 6. Because I did like TV when I was 5, and then I started acting when I was 6. So I was around adults most of like older kids or adults all my life. And one of the things
Hmm.
that I used to get really good at was watching. I people watch obsessively. I love that.
I love to people watch too. I think people watching is so important.
Yeah.
Is
But one of the things that I did that my drama club never did, or anybody that worked with me ever did until recently, till I started working with wrestlers, was they never listened to the crowd. And I always used to say, if you're acting or you're performing, you have to be listening to people who you're selling to, because if they don't
right.
buy it, well, what the hell are you doing? Um, so that was something I used to be able to really do, was to take something that was very tense filled audience and spin it to whatever it needed to be. And I think I rescued several plays over the years by just listening to. And Shetland is really bad for deadpanning people. So, oh gosh, they don't like making noise. They don't like laughing.
Oh
Like, they totally
no.
killed Billy Connolly's act. Billy Connolly came to Shetland and said he'd never do it again because they didn't laugh. The first night he was
That
there,
that's
nobody
painful.
laughed at a single joke he had. He came off the stage in the at the break, and he's like, "I'm dying out there. Nobody will laugh." And somebody pulled him aside and said, "Actually, they're hanging on to your every word. Chill. You will get the biggest applause and you'll get the biggest reaction at the end. They're just hanging on to what you're saying." And it was right. Like, as soon as he finished, he had the biggest laugh, the biggest, they all stood up, they all went nuts. They sold out his second night. He came back a second night. But because somebody had said to the community, you need to laugh when a comedian's on stage, they picked up the cues to when they were supposed to laugh, and they did. But because they didn't know how to interact with a comedian, they had deadpanned him
Wow.
for the entire night. So I'm
As
really
a
bad for
comedian,
that.
that's painful.
Yeah, it is.
That's like a nightmare for a comedian.
Because one of my standing jokes, with somebody that knows me exceedingly well, is we used to do deadpanning contests in the drama club. And I was one of the only people that would never break. So My friend reckons I should go one on one with the actress from Wednesday to see who would break first.
She is, unbelievably talented.
Yeah, she's unbelievably talented, but I bet I could make her break before she could make me break. But then I have the wickedness. I have the wicked cerebral side of myself that I'm now developing again. So, yeah. So tell us what you're reading.
What am I currently reading? I've actually been reading the Vampire Knitting Club series.
Okay,
It's a cozy mystery series.
right.
It's one of those things that I love listening to audiobooks before bed. And
Yeah,
so the cozy mysteries before bed are just a nice way to wind down.
yeah.
Beyond that, I'm also currently reading a craft book. I'm a member of a group called Savvy Authors, which is an online group, and
I
they have a
know
lot of
that group. Yep,
class.
I'm in
Okay,
there. Yep.
I'm in the summer reading program, and
Mm-hmm.
so we're doing a book on emotion right now, and so I'm listening to that too.
Yeah.
So I
I'm go
admit, I
I'm
spend
gonna
more
have to
time
get you
listening
a
to
copy of
audiobooks.
Summer Hemp. I'm going to have to get you the audiobook of that.
Oh, I love audiobooks. And a
But
lot of it is as an author, you spend so much time writing and looking
yeah,
at things that it's nice to have that ability to switch. I just
exactly.
finished a review of what is her name? Jeanette de Bouvier's The Fine Art of Deception. She has a new book that just is, I think it comes out next week.
I'll have to get you to send me
So
that title because I want to pass that on to a friend of mine because
it's
I
it's
think he would enjoy it, but I'm not
it's
sure.
for me, it's fun. It's a mystery series that takes place in Provincetown,
Uh-huh.
which
Oh, I thought
is
you meant the art of deception. I thought you meant that that was like a writing tool book. Because isn't there
no
one that's a
this.
writer's tool book?
There's a lot of
Yeah.
there's so
Yeah,
many
there's
tool
so
books
many.
out
That's why I thought that, oh, he
there.
must have been studying, like
I look around me and go, I have at least 2 dozen writers' books just sitting around me right
I had to
now.
start selling mine because I have so many and I don't have a lot of space because I'm in a two-bedroom apartment. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to sell some of my books. So I stuck the writers one on all the writers ones up for sale on eBay because I'm like, well, I've read them. They're somewhere in my head. If I need it, it'll come back to me. And they sold quicker than the ones that's in the fancy book box ones. Like the Fairy
Wow.
Loot and the Illumicrate. Yeah. I actually got more money for them than I did for the Illumicrate ones, which I was really surprised about.
It, I think I mean, as an author, I'm a collector of craft books, just because
Yeah, we
we're
all do it.
always trying to up our game.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
and
contest with ourselves.
yeah, and there are always new ones coming out.
Yeah.
And so you're always looking to, I mean, even if you take like one little nugget from a book, that's one little nugget that you can use to make yourself better.
And my
And
argument is don't read the books by somebody that you don't know or you don't like their writing because there's a lot of people that write I say workbooks for other writers and they've never done anything. If you know what I mean, they've never really written anything and then when you read the book you're like, no, you don't do that. No, that doesn't make sense. Like, do you know what I mean?
yeah, there are definitely some craft books out there that
Are just
I've
rubbish.
questioned
Yeah.
the person who wrote it. And I'm like, especially
That's
when
why
you,
I'll
you
never do
then
one.
try to figure out what have you written? What have you
Yeah.
actually written that
Yeah.
makes you the expert? I mean, and I get that it is in its own right a different type of writing.
Hmm.
But yeah, you have to have had some experience because half of writing a craft book is like this is stuff I've learned
Yeah.
as a writer, and this is how
Which
I've
means
made
you have to
myself
have actually
better.
written something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know people who have published craft books who've never actually.
Yeah. I think that in the craft books now we need to be seeing more about author platforming, networking. Like I would like to see them talking more business and less about the craft itself, because I think there's so many of these upcoming authors behind us that haven't necessarily had the same experiences we have. So they're
Right.
like so far behind the game in regards to putting the business stuff aside, putting the business stuff together. And then they make, like, it's almost cringeworthy to watch them make the same mistakes we've made, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and thankfully there is a new generation of craft book that's specifically targeting like building your
Uh,
social media platform,
I'm gonna have to read
which
one
is
of those. Damn.
good. Probably one of my favorite ones in that genre. Have you read Newsletter Ninja?
No, no, you're gonna have
It's
to send me
basic.
that one.
It's basically all about building your newsletter and putting
Okay.
out, which is one of those things we know is a huge seller today is the ability
Yeah.
to get people subscribed to your email, but at the same time realizing that when they are subscribing to your email,
It,
you need to have content, not just about selling them books, even though that is can't be everything. And that's what we know about social media. It's so much
yeah,
relationships, and again, easier said than done.
exactly. But also, like, what I do now is because I feel guilty about, because I went and I taught at college. I did a talk for a local college last month, and I was like, I realized that these younger kids, they have no concept of networking or, understanding what they're getting themselves involved in. So they had me there to talk about podcasting, but it became about the creative industry as a whole rather than just
Hmm.
podcasting. And one of the things, like, I was showing them examples of people that have built their brand so quickly, but lose it so quickly. So that's why I'm doing the PDA videos now, where I'm like, so your first author signing, make sure you've done your marketing, make sure you've done your media, make sure they've put the media out, so that you don't just show up and you're like a car salesman with a copy of your book that's just arrived 2 minutes before you're supposed to start signing. Um, and you're trying to sell it to like random strangers as they're walking by you, for instance. Like silly things like that. I'm putting in PDA videos, but actually, Victoria Everard has started doing it as well. I don't know if she's seen one of mine and thought, oh, I'll do that. But she did a PDA about not responding to reviewers.
Oh gosh, yes,
And don't respond to bad reviews, or,
or good
don't
ones.
share them as well.
Or personally, so when my first book came out, I admit I read them,
Oh, so did I.
and that was the last time I did that.
Yeah,
I just
I'm right there with you. The
I
worst thing
figure if
was,
there is an issue, I'm going to
oh
hear
God,
people.
yeah. People can kill their careers by just responding to a reviewer
Yeah,
before
and
it even
honestly,
begins. Yeah.
those those are not designed for the authors, and I know that's
No.
hard for authors to grasp, but the reviewer places are for the reviewers. Let them do their thing there. We do our thing before. And that's where one of
Yeah.
the things that's, I think,
Hindsight's a
really
bitch.
hard is to go, once I've written the book, once I have edited the book, my part is at that point
Done.
done.
Yeah.
I just have to, sit back and let everything else just kind of happen, because that's not our part of the world. Our job is to write. And
Honestly, how many times are we sneaky and we do sneak a peek?
I've been pretty good, primarily because I learned that if there was an issue,
Right.
because there was one
So you'd say you
situation where
resist then.
yeah, and some of it is just I know there's some people who are going to love you, and there's people who are like you, and like I
Hmm.
don't need that for my for my own psychological well-being. I just don't need
Yeah.
it. It's like of all the things that I need to worry about in life, I just can't let myself do that because I think you will cripple yourself if you really
I've
just
done it.
sit
Yeah.
there and read those because then you question everything that you write. And you go, well,
Do you
what
know, do
if
you know what's
this
worse
is
though?
good?
Is when you go on Goodreads and you have zero reviews. Those are the worst. That's the worst.
And you go, why? What happened?
Yeah.
Um,
That's what goes through my head. I'm like, is it that bad? No one's reviewing it? Like, yeah, I do. I do worry about that sometimes. But I've
but
learned
sometimes
like,
it's, people don't always,
no, they don't always
they
review, yeah.
don't. I mean, most of the books I actually review, it's because I'm actually doing a review. And that's a completely different
Yeah.
type of
Well,
situation all on its own right.
I started doing reviews because I felt like I understood it from an author perspective of we actually do need to reviews so that people
Yeah.
actually know about it. And then I just got in the habit of always writing them or recording them as because I do it on here. I'll have like a book review on here every so often, and that's usually because somebody sends me a copy of their book and they're like, "Hey, let me know what you think." And then I'm like, "But I always say I'm going to be brutally honest, and it might not be what what you
Yeah.
want to hear, but I'll give you my honest opinion, and that'll be it." And everybody says they're okay with it. And so far, I've not had anybody that's upset. But saying that, I hate it when you get the reviews that say it did not finish and they say
Yeah.
nothing else. And you're like, well, why didn't you finish it?
And
That one bothers
that
me.
isn't a review.
No,
That's,
it's a comment. Especially when it's
and
not a finished sentence, too. That also bugs me.
yeah, and I
I
think
can't
that's
really say anything about
even as
grammar.
a reader.
But, mm,
I, and maybe it's because I'm on the, I don't primarily because I look at something like, I know work, back into this, it's like 100 years, that home life is long range, and so as a reader, I am way more interested in having previous experience, hearing from what
yeah.
they like and what they are finding interesting, and figuring these things out, or just looking at things randomly and going, you know what, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, because like I've met some Insta reviewers lately because I've kind of been
Hmm.
digging into the bookstagram lot.
Uh-huh.
And there's this one lassie, I love her to death. Her name's Kay. And she does like when she loves your book, she will not give you a bad review, right? She'll just get rid of your book and she'll not say anything. But when she loves the book, she makes these little videos and then she puts them on her Instagram. So like you're getting thousands of people looking at, your stuff compared to maybe one or two reading a review. So I'm
Hmm.
starting to see the benefit of these sort of TikToks and Instagram stuff now compared to what it was. Are
I
you
also
finding that?
worry that, yeah, let me, I'll come back to that in just a second. The other thing that I do worry about is, especially as a reviewer, if you're always overly positive,
Yeah.
does that make you not as credible as a reviewer? But at the same time, it's like, as an author, the last thing I want to do is
Hmm.
for a bad review, even if the book is problematic.
Yeah.
And so I always try to, this is the educator in me. I always try to bookend things like, here's the
Yeah.
positive things. Let's end on a positive note. Here are the problems.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'm the same. Like I'll go like because I just did Mercy Falls by Maggie Shaffer, which is the last of her werewolf series. And I was so excited to read the end books. I'd enjoyed the first, I think, three. And I'm
mhm.
like, okay, gotta finish this. I gotta see how this she's gonna end the series. And then I was gutted at the ending. I was like, oh, that's why it gets so many bad reviews. I was like, ah. And then I felt bad because I'm like, it got 4 stars because,
Yeah.
like that's how I addressed it in the video. I'm like, it got 4 stars because. And I'm still debating whether I should post on no. Goodreads. I liked it, but I didn't like how you ended it because I felt like you cheaped out, you know.
That
But
happens. I mean, not
yeah, I
in not
honestly like Jason. It was like she got to the end and she just put the pen down. There was no real ending to it. Like I even checked it 4 or 5 times to make sure that was the last page.
yeah, I understand.
So I was gutted. But I then saying that I don't know how I'm going to end Marie's World. I don't know if I can actually end the series. So I guess I'll have to reserve judgment.
That was one of the things, let's talk about a, slightly now controversial author, but at the same time, we still can learn a lot from J.K.
Yeah.
Rowling.
Oh yeah.
The fact that she knew from the beginning kind of where the story was going to end. I, I,
She's
I'm
already written the end.
I'm jealous. I am always jealous of that because, especially when it's a series, I don't always know where everything is going.
Well, I mean, I know the
And
ending to all my series. It's just, and I've written the ending to all of my series, but because how I do it is I write the end and then I go back to the beginning.
mhm,
Because I do it like Shona Rhimes. Like I always start at the end and then I kind of fill in it as I go, which is great until you're working with a co-author and then you're like, oh, I gotta explain this. Oh, no, I gotta explain that. Like, crap. Because, like, that's when I realized it doesn't really work if you got somebody else on board with you. Um, Especially if they've got a different take on something, like mine did. Um, but yeah, I always
I've
I always knew how it would end.
I've co-authored nonfiction books with people and I've co-edited things with people. I have never
Mhm.
tried to write fiction with another person.
It is so
And
much fun,
I can't imagine
honestly.
just because, like you say, making all those decisions with another person. And
But then you
I'm
also
just so
have,
used to doing that.
but then you also can like, you're only taking half the blame. You never thought of it like this way, but there's been times where I'm like, oh, that was Joe's idea, like stooge, when it wasn't. It was
Hey,
actually my idea. But yeah, like, and the good thing is you have somebody you're working with them in step. And if you get stuck, you've always got somebody that you can 100% trust, who understands the characters, understands where you're at. And if you take turns with writing, it can be a lot of fun. Like, I can say, Joe, I need a wrestling scene here, and I need this outcome, and I need it to have this outcome because, and I can explain it to him, and then he'll give me like the bare bones, and then I'll fill it in. But we
hmm
we trade off. Um, what what slows us down is when I have to ask him to read chapters. And I send him like 4 or 5 chapters in one day, and then I have to wait a week to get a reply.
yeah,
That's the downside. But saying that, he's very good because if he knows it's a deadline and we've got a set deadline, then he will come back quicker. And he'll be like, okay, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And he gives me notes on the chapters. But I'm doing it for the very first time professionally on a script. And that's just been an even totally like 190-degree change in experience again.
hmm
Because you have to set aside time to work on it, but then you can't go in and work on it without that person there. Or at least that's the situation I have with this person. And it's educating me about giving and taking, about listening to somebody else's opinion, but I'm learning so much. Like I'm sponging at the moment because there's almost like a respect level there between me and him. He's done it for
hmm
longer than I have, but at the same time, he kind of knows that I'm not an idiot, and he has like a little level of respect for me too, and it works quite well.
hmm
Um, I think it's different if you're both going into fiction and if you're both on the same level, then it could get a bit more tricky. But if you work with somebody and you like them and you've got a good chemistry with them, you'll create magic. Absolutely create magic. But we have to get you on this Marie's World thing. Because I think I said that to you last time we talked. I'm like, you gotta read it.
I definitely would like to. I don't think you did last time, so let's
Yeah,
make
I
sure that
did. I
happens.
sent it to you.
I'll have to double check. You know how
This is
email
when he
goes.
Googles in his email, Marie's World. Did she send it to me? If I haven't, I'll send it to you. I'll send you an ebook copy.
Yeah, it's one of those things that email.
However,
I don't even want to go there.
I did not know, right? I did not know I had a plot hole the size of an Arctic truck
Oh
until
no.
until one of my friends texted me saying, "You do realize you have like a huge gap in your plot, right?" I was like, "No, I do now. The book's out. It's a bit late."
What? Oh no.
Yeah,
That
but I fixed it. I fixed it. So,
so is this one that you were self-publishing or is this one that you was
oh no, this one I had it. This was the very first one. It's signed with a national release publisher. Went nationwide in the
didn't
UK
catch
and
it
the
either?
US.
Oh,
Yeah, and then I left that company, and now I've re-signed and I'm relaunching the entire series for a second time. Nationwide again, UK and US.
that's where I mean the relationship between you and your editor is just so
Yeah,
important. And knowing that, you know, you can trust your editor and that your editor is going to have your back and be
yeah,
able to catch those types of things. Because, you know, that's one of the things I've loved about my editor with Pride Publishing is she's caught like one things from one book to the next book. Like I had one
hmm
where I literally changed a character's name or I changed where the character was located.
I've
And
done
she,
that too.
you know,
Yeah,
and you go, I don't know where that came from. I have no idea what in my brain at that moment just was like,
hmm
I'm just going to switch things around.
yeah.
You
I
know,
think we all do that though. Like, because do you not get it when you have a day where you plot something, like you get a whole new book idea and you spend the day writing out the plot, and then you go back to what you were working on? Like, do you
hmm
not get that kind of that sticky kind of gear shift kind of feeling when you do that?
and that's where, you know, as a plotter, having all of that stuff in one place so that I can go back and just having, you know, my notes become so crucial because
Yeah.
I'm often, you know, working on multiple projects at the same time in different genres.
Don't we all?
And
Don't
if
we all?
I wasn't keeping track of that stuff very, very, very carefully, I
Yeah.
couldn't begin to imagine how messed up everything I wrote would become, as I would probably start blending my worlds.
I've done that. I've done that. Like, I never realized I had blended Waking Up His Wife is the first one of a series of
Uh-huh.
six. And I didn't realize that I had actually put it in the same world as Marie's world until yesterday when I
Oh
was doing the
no.
screenplay. And then I was like, shit, I shouldn't have done that. But what I did was it's two different wrestling companies, so it kind of works. However, it would be problematic if I ever did a crossover, essentially. So I
Yeah.
won't ever do a crossover. But there's a minority of people that would have picked up on the fact that I had made the second biggest wrestling company in the world the one that Marie is actually involved with. So yes, I'm
That's
I'm learning from my trip ups. Well, let's go with trip ups. Trip ups is a good
that's
word.
a good way to put that. But it's it happens, and that's one of those things I don't, you know, I never want one of those things to take
Yeah,
the reading experience. But I also want readers to understand that, yeah, that stuff happens.
it does.
We
It does
are
happen.
human. We do our best, but
Yeah,
occasionally things just slip through. To me, when that stuff happens, it's kind of like whenever you're watching like an old Western movie and suddenly you
yeah.
see like the plane in the sky.
Or you see a random bottle of water that somebody's forgot to take it out of shot. Yeah,
I wonder
yeah.
which TV show you're talking about there.
Yes, yes, we all know that one.
And you
Yeah.
just go, guess what? That stuff happens.
Yeah.
Enjoy those moments when
And
you find them.
elbows and laughs and everything else you get out of it. Yeah. I'm sure the director's gotta be like burning, face burning, because
Oh,
we,
yeah.
you know,
Well, I remember once I was running a convention
yep.
and, I had a graphic designer. I had a team of people that helped me with stuff. We get to the convention first day, and one of my friends comes up to me and goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Your cover." And I'm like, "What do you mean? The cover of the program?" They misspelled the name of the city we were in,
Oh, wow. That's a major one.
and no one caught it.
You know
I'm like,
what?
how many people looked at this before it went to print and no
Yeah.
one saw?
You know what's going to be funny, Jason? And I've never thought about doing this till now. Next time, if you ever do run another convention, you should have me there. And we'll do like the Book and Life podcast live. Because I've never
That
done
could
one
be fun.
live. That would be kind of awesome. You
That's
and me will.
surprising.
Yeah, yeah. We'll do one live, and we'll take a couple authors in, and we'll just do like a 3 hour special, and have somebody that will like remind us about the time or something. But what I'll
Yeah.
also do is I'll also get my two wrestling friends to come with me. And I can have one teach a class about psychology and the other one teach a class about um oh, they both could do psychology, I suppose. We could actually have a real party. Real fun time.
Yeah, I'm liking the fact that we're finally starting to reopen some of
Yeah.
that stuff.
And do
Um,
you know what? If I bring my two friends, it'll be the first time they ever come to a romance convention or an erotica convention, depending how you plan it.
that
That could be
again,
fun.
it. We live in fun times, and this is a fun
Yeah.
business to be a part of. And it's not all perfect. There's definitely it has its issues,
Oh God,
but
yeah.
we have to take it for what it is and enjoy the
Hmm.
ride.
And the thing is, we're
And
making memories. We're making
yeah,
memories and experiences.
and that's what we want our readers to come away with is some kind of experience. And you know if we make you feel something along the way, that's kind of what our goal is.
That's the
Whether
whole
it's
job. Yeah.
excitement or love
Anger.
or passion, yeah,
Yeah.
we want our readers to get a break from their life. And it doesn't always have to be like, this is a giant theme that I'm going to try to hit you over the head with.
Oh God, yeah.
Sometimes reading is just pure escapism because that's what we need
Mhm.
in our lives.
But yeah, and sort of kind of backtailing on that is that the great thing is if you bring in the right. I also think it's good if you have a convention and then you have classes set aside that are for a little bit more for the advanced authors.
Hmm.
Those are really good. Like, because I think if you sat down with my friend and you listen to how he puts his character psychologies together, you'll get totally lost in it. But you'll walk away and learn something. There's no way that you couldn't sit and listen to him for an hour and not learn anything, if you know what I mean. So yeah, but I'm even starting to kind of get to that point where I'm like, oh, I really should go back to conventions. I really should start getting back out there. Because like, if COVID's gonna get me, it's gonna get me now. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
no point in hiding from it because it's, we're at that point now. So, but yeah, uh, but I'll do this. I'll do this for the show. I will say the first convention I'll go to is Jason's. How about that?
I wouldn't do that because who knows when I'm going to have a chance. Because I am currently um, running getting ready to run the Romance Writers of America 15 years.
Yeah, boot me on that one then. Like, yeah,
And
get me
that
involved with that.
is a whole lot of making sure that it, that is make sure that
Yeah.
we don't run into any problems.
Well, it sounds fun. I think I got invited to that one once actually before, but I never made it. I can't remember what the reason was. But it was nice to be invited, I suppose. But yeah, I'll shoot you that stuff later, and you can have a giggle and a laugh about it on the side. But yeah, well, you survived the Book and Life podcast. Let's hope that this time the sound works. We don't have to do this again.
We'll be like,
Oh,
take three.
take three. Yeah, no, it should be fine. I ran the test this time, and even though like you came in and out a little bit at the end, I could still make out what you were saying. So
That's
maybe need a
that's what
minor
editing
cleanup.
is.
Yeah, that's what the editing booth's for. So yeah. But no, it's been great, and I always have a good time when you come on and we have a laugh and we have a joke and stuff. So yeah,
I can't take life too seriously.
no, we can't. Oh, do you want to like quickly give the dates for the vampire one so that people can watch out for it?
The vampire?
Oh no, not the vampire. What am I saying? I've got vampires on the brain now.
I, that's one I have not written yet. I've done werewolves.
I know, like I don't know where vampires came from. No, do you want to plug the convention that you might be running so that people like remember it?
Well, I'm not again not running. I'm just running the awards.
Well, yeah, but so people
Yeah,
know to come and see you.
yeah. I have to go. Yeah, we're going to be in Texas for that one.
I know.
In August.
August, yeah. That
Yeah, it's
I
going to be
knew it was
miserable.
like I had yeah, it had to be August sometime. Yeah.
It'll be yeah. So that'll be 2024. We're going to be um in Texas. I can say that if you are somebody interested in entering the Video Awards, public awards that Democratic America has, we are going to be looking to submissions
Yeah.
uh, again, we're looking for, all different types of romance, as long as it fits within, the confines of the wonderful world of romance and we get our happily ever after or happy for now, those are the most important things. So definitely be on the lookout for that because we want to have a really good, diverse set of people that are submitting this year.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like a show like that is a lot of fun because, you know, you can go from like the extreme end to the light-hearted, fluffy end. So, I always say they're the best. I'd love to do the Texas. Texas sounds like fun, actually. I've heard some wild stories about Texas conventions, so
I grew up in Texas, so I'm like, yeah.
yeah, yeah, everything's bigger in Texas. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard that one a lot. Well,
And they're not joking.
no, they're
It's like,
not. I've seen some of the hairstyles. I'm like, wow, your head must be heavy.
well, the higher the hair, the closer to God.
Yeah, I know. Like I heard that. I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. I
Anytime I
guess.
fly home to visit my parents, I'm like, I know I'm in Texas when I see my first woman with Texas hair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you
And
there.
that's what I call it. It is Texas hair. It is shellacked. Probably still
Oh.
using Aquanet to make sure that it doesn't move.
It's weird. I remember using that once. I never
Oh
used
God.
it again. I never used it again. I I can't even remember oh yeah, I do remember. We were doing a show in Dundee. It was some place in Dundee. And my friend's like, let me do your hair for tonight. Because I had long hair at that point, and I was having a hell of a job keeping it out of my face when we were performing because she can't tie it up. And she sprayed it with it. Like she sprayed like the whole front of my head with
Oh
it
God.
so that my hair would stay sleeked back. Oh my God, I couldn't get the stuff out for like a week. I'm like, for a week I couldn't get rid of it. And I'm like, oh man. Yeah, so I ended up with some really weird hairstyles for like a week.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like I don't like sweating at the best of times, but that was the only way I could get rid of it was I had to sweat it out.
Yeah, what you need is paint thinner.
Oh God, I wasn't putting paint thinner in my hair. Somebody actually did tell me to do that, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. But
I
yeah,
joke, but yeah, it does seem like that's pretty much what you need to
pretty much, yeah. Like
get that
I
stuff
was I was
out.
smart enough. I just went to I dragged Derek out of bed that day, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna go do an extra workout because I was just like hyped up on adrenaline. And he was like, "Oh, okay." And all I did was like for 4 hours, I sweated endlessly to get it out of my hair, and that was the
Ugh.
only way I could shift it. And I hate to sweat. Like I'm one of the lazier dancers. I'm like, oh, starting to sweat, need to take a break, you know? And then I'll not like go so like full on for that period of time. I'll just like pretend I'm keeping up. And then as soon as like I'm starting to kind of cool down again, I'll go and I'll start picking it up again, like the pace and the tempo and everything. And Dark used to always say to me, "God, you really must hate sweating." Because I would even hate sweating in performances. Because like you start sweating, they slip you because you're not as like easy to grab and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I said,
Yeah.
no, it's just because I don't want to go head first through something or you to drop me because I'm too sweaty. That was also the reason I never used baby oil either. I hated baby oil. Never understood why girls did that. Like cover themselves in baby. No, not my thing. I think I had more self preservation than other people.
I am. I understand that. I am all about self-preservation.
Yeah, and the worst thing was one of the performances I did when I was really little was they had me as the king rat, even though I was a girl. King Rat, and I had to run around the theater screeching, and then I'd have to jump on the stage, slide under the set, because I was the only one that could fit through the hole, because the guy who built the set hadn't built the holes for the pantomime very big.
Oh no.
So that was the whole reason they picked me, was because I was really small. My voice was like super screechy at that time. I had a screechy voice as a kid. So I would go full lungs as I could, screeching round the theater, and then I would do the jump in. But you should have seen the state of my knees though, after like doing that for a week.
Ow.
My knees were black. I bruised my knees so much they went black. Because it
Yeah,
was
that's
like
when you're
I
supposed
was
to wear knee
diving
pads.
onto actually hard wooden boards, like stage boards, with no padding on it.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
definitely not good.
no, it's not good. Not for a 6-year-old,
He was
you know?
6.
I was 6, yeah. I was 6. I was a king rat at 6.
Well, it's kind
That
of like
was,
what we talked about earlier. Little kids bounce back.
yeah, like, but no, like, I went to school, like, after that week, and, I couldn't do PE because my knees were like footballs. They were swollen up and they were black. If that had been, like, me now, I would have broke both my kneecaps or something, you know? Like, there's no way I could have done it, but, oh, the state of my legs. Like, I couldn't bear for any kid to touch my knee because, like, ow. So yeah, that was my first taste of pain in performance, which we've all experienced.
And that's where you got to go, especially as you get older. You go, you know what? I don't need to do that. There are ways around that.
Yeah, I did. I
Um,
learned self-preservation and protection very quickly, like on how to protect my body, especially when it came to stage fighting. The amount of girls that couldn't slap to save themselves, like because when you do stage fighting, you put your hand under your chin so that the audience can't see this that you're not being slapped.
right.
There are girls that would miss my hand and just slap me. It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
So I used to just like clench my jaw and hope for the best.
one of my favorite stage moments ever was I had a backhand slap of a guy,
Oh
and
wow.
it was just, again, it was one of the hardest things. Was, I knew his hand was going to be under the chin. I had to
Yeah.
trust that it was going to be there,
Yeah.
and he had to trust that I wouldn't hit him,
Yeah.
that I would hit the hand.
But
And every time we got that when it actually happened, because it let out a nice crack.
it always does, yeah. Well, what because of the girls that had such bad aim for my crew was I just learned to like tense my jaw, like close my mouth and then puff my cheek out a little bit. So you would still get the sound of the slap, but it wouldn't like hurt essentially. Because yeah,
Not the
they
goal.
couldn't hit my hand for crap. I would rather take it on the cheek than them to miss and me to get like a finger up my nose, which happened a couple of times, or and then when we did the hair pulling as well, that one was also terribly done because they're supposed to ball their fist on the top of your head
Yeah.
not actually grab your hair. The amount of girls that couldn't like close their fist before they put it on top of your head was
Yeah.
ridiculous. I ended up with so many bits of hair ripped out my head. I was like, oh, for sake. Like, you know. But saying that, my first ever stage fighting class, I actually broke my partner's nose.
Oh.
I so didn't mean it. I told him, I'm gonna punch you, duck. And I'll hit my leg so it looks like I hit you. He didn't duck.
Oh no.
And I got him straight in the nose and it went, and I was like, ah. Oh. So yeah, I had to be so careful after that. So careful. Now I pull all of them because I'm terrified I actually make contact. But I haven't done, like, because that was what we did in Apache, was we had the fighting all the time. And you broke it up with little bits of dancing. And I had to learn to kind of pull it all the time, especially with Derek. Derek was he was so easy to make bleed. It was ridiculous. But he always got me back. If I actually planted him, he'd get me back and my nose would bleed or whatever, you know. So I learned very quickly the difference with following through and not following through. So yeah. But it's been fantastic to have you on. We'll have you back in November when you've got your cozy coming out. And we'll have another chat. Maybe a bit more about your book next time.
Maybe we'll talk about writing.
Yeah, yeah, you know, like, because we totally sort of went off on a side tangent and we never came back, so, but yeah.
We have that ability.
Oh gosh, yeah, we do. We do. We did it in the
We
first
we
one
do
too.
not have to worry about dead air. That is one.
Exactly. Like, I like guests that I don't have to fight to get to talk. Because I get a few of them. And I'm
I've
like
had.
prompting.
Yeah.
Yeah, prompting, you know. But no, I mean, you're luckily with you, I've not had that, so yeah. But yeah, we'll have you back in November.
Sounds great.
Sounds good. All right. So I shall see you guys all next week as we have another best-selling author coming on, and it was also our first ever guest, so you're going to want to see that.